Hi guys, thank you for liking my webinar so much, and a lot of you had asked the ILM organizers, and those of you have written on the chat box also that you would like to have the checklist. So quite many of you have been emailed by ILM, but this is another one and you can get it by easily emailing me on info@learnwithkanika.com. And in this video I'll just explain you how to use it because yesterday we couldn't have the time to do that. It's a very easy worksheet checklist to use, and the idea is to just make sure that your presentation has everything that is required. Okay, so let's quickly look at it. Okay, so the important thing is introduction. How do you start your the content? Okay, so how do you start your speech? Do you start it with a question, with a joke? See, it's a very thing which people often ask me, and I always tell them it depends. When are you doing it? If it is after lunch, I always ask people to, ask people, hey, how was the lunch? And I know even I didn't want to come and leave the suites and come back to the lecture room, but we can't help it. So we can always do that, and it also depends when do you have your lecture scheduled. But your introduction should be interesting. It should get people's attention immediately. You can start with a very difficult question, a question for which people are coming to your seminar. What is the answer? There is a major problem with they're coming with for which your webinar can be a solution. So start with a question or with something which is interesting. So your introduction should be very interesting because people have very they have lost interest. They have just one webinar is finished or one lecture is finished, second has started. So it's important. So check if it is correct. Second, it is a transition. So how is the transition between the two topics? It should be very smooth, as I said. So look at your content, look at your speech, see if the transition is good. It should not be like you finish one topic and you start something else, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. So make sure that it is good. Okay, then the other one is comprehensible. Is your speech comprehensible? Guys, using big words, difficult word is not the idea. Try and use simple, easy words, concepts that can, even if you have the most difficult concepts, explain them in easy words, and that should be your speech should be comprehensible. Boring. It often happens that you have a lot of content and you also put it in a way which is very boring. So make sure that your speech isn't boring. So check, that's a very important checkpoint for you. And then is your speech interactive when you're performing? When you look at your video, see if you're interacting with people. Are you asking enough questions to the audience? Are you are you getting enough response? Is it interactive? Do you think it will happen? So do that. It's very important. Overloaded, it's very important again, as I told you before, that a lot of time what happens is that people put a lot of information, and as I always tell you people during my presentation skill webinar perform lectures, that it is not important, and actually it's a very negative thing because people won't remember most of it. And as I always give my students a challenge, I give you also a challenge. Remember the best speech you have ever heard, and let me know that if you remember more than 3 or 4 points, bullet points from that presentation. So I'm sure you can't. If you remember 4, that speech was very good. So don't overload. So look at your presentation, look at your speech, and see if it is overloaded or not. And same goes for underloaded. So if you're coming for my lecture or my webinar on presentation skills and I don't talk about body language, it is underloaded because I am not talking about one of the most important aspects of presentation skill. So for presentation skills, body language is important, so I should include it. So read your speech and see if you have missed on any important point. That's vital, guys. Then, as I told in the webinar also, and I want to lay stress on stories, people relate more on stories. If I give you a data, you may remember it, may not. But if I tell you a true story, a story, you would remember it and it will have more impact of your speech. So do that. Then good examples, again, give good examples. Don't give examples which are lame, don't give examples which people can't relate to. So if I give you an example of something which is happening in Italy and my audience is in India, they may not relate to it. Vice versa, if I give my Italian students an example from Indian context, they might understand, they might not. So your examples should be good, very, very, relevant to the topic and also relevant to the place where you are. And then, as I said yesterday also in the webinar, that call for action is important. What do you want? Is your speech at the end conveying what you want people to do? Because every communication, as I said, has a purpose. So is it telling your call for action clearly? It should be very, very clear in your speech. Then of course you have to see the time. If you have only 5 minutes and your speech is for 10 minutes, doesn't make sense. Edit it, make it for the right time, 5 minutes or whatever time you have. Then interactive questions. How many questions do you have? A lot of them or less, or what kind of questions do you have? Are they good questions? Are they bad questions? Are they simple questions? Are they too simple questions? If I'm teaching in, let's say, at a graduation level, I cannot ask a question which is for a fifth grader. So make sure your questions are interesting and up to the level of the audience. And then compelling. Your speech should be compelling. It should make me feel that I need to do what you are saying. There is a requirement for what you are saying, or I should completely believe in what you are saying because you are saying it so compelling, in a so compelling way that I need to believe it. And then strong ending. It is very important that you end your speech, that people remember your end, because it could be by the end they are a little bit bored or something. So it's important that you have a very strong ending that calls for action again. Okay. This is for the content. Let's go to the next part of the checklist, which is about more about the presentation, the body language, and all. The tone. So once you've recorded your video, look, hear it carefully. See what was your tone. Was your tone good? Was your tone not good? Were you monotonous? If you and then you can do one, two, three, as many as times as you want. And I will explain you why I have F written on the last column, but I'll tell you this later. Pauses at the right time, it's important. So if I keep speaking like this and I don't take a pause in between, it will be a problem, right? So it's important that you, when you see your video, you see that you have taken the correct pauses at the right time. Speed. Some people speak fast, some people speak slow, but maintain an average speed, which is 100 to 120 words per minute, and maintain it. Breathing. Are you breathing normally? Some people, if you see their speeches, they just go, you know, it should not look that you are speaking and you're tired and you can't, listen to it carefully. Okay, so listen to it very, very carefully. Your volume. So I often tell my students to do this because it also shows your confidence. It is that when you start your speech, ask people at the extreme back, people at the back, can you hear me? If yes, please wave your hand or just shout out yes. This actually gets the attention of the people at the back. You can check your volume, and it's a great way to do it. Eye contact, as we spoke a lot in the webinar yesterday about where eye contact, and lots of you also had questions about it. It's very important that you look at your video and see if you're able to maintain the right eye contact. Sometimes people are not able to make it, and that is quite annoying. If you're not looking at me and speaking, it's quite annoying. Then your head, shoulder, and knees, your posture should be right, and you should be not at any given time be showing your back to the audience. Okay, so you should always face the audience. Sorry, I went a little down. Oops, sorry, where is it? Here it is. Hand. Okay, so your hands, as I said yesterday also, your hands are a normal part of your body, so use them normally. But if you can't use them normal, like naturally you are just fidgeting with your hair or you're doing something like that, then try and do something with your hands, which could be just keeping a pencil in your hand like this or something like that. For all the solutions, you can actually go to the webinar and listen to it again. The link is down in the description. Here again, I said don't fidget with your hair, so just keep them proper, keep them in a way that you don't touch. If you see in your videos that you touch your hair a lot, which is very common, also for boys who think their hair are like perfect and they keep doing this all the time, I'm sorry, but don't do that. Okay, try and keep your hair in a way that you don't touch them or they don't come on your face, on your forehead. Make sure makeup again, don't do a very gaudy makeup because it's distracting and it distracts people from the real content. It's important again. Time here is also important because here I'm not telling you to use content time, but here I mean when you have when you time, when you see that sometime what happens is that when you're doing your real performance your time goes haywire. Check that. Then content and the meaning. Make sure that you know the meaning of all the words when you're performing because that's important. And then look at your video and see if you're comfortable and if you look confident. And I did tell you the secret about that also in the webinar, how to look confident and comfortable. So check out that. And if you don't have the this checklist with you, then please you can email me and I'll get back to you. Also, as I promised in my webinar, if you send me a video of your performance on my email ID, I will give you individual feedback, and if I can help you in any way, I'll be more than happy to do that. So guys, use the checklist and tell me how do you find it. I can guarantee you, I've spoken to many people, I've used this worksheet and it works every time. I can guarantee you it's going to make your presentation much better. So thank you. Email me on this and you would get the checklist. Thank you.